Pokemon's creepypastas are some of the most terrifying in existence, but that doesn't mean you can remember them all. So, how about I remind you of some of the most bone-chilling, nightmare-inducing Pokemon creepypastas that I could find. That's what we're exploring today. Let's do it, and let me know your favorite Pokemon creepypasta in the comments. In 10, trapped in a cave. It was night. The wind was blowing ferociously, so I tried to find a cave. As I did, I saw a light nearby. I hid to make sure I wasn't attacked, but I saw a terrible sight. A Charizard and what I can only assume was his trainer were nearby. The trainer was on the ground, missing both of his legs. The Charizard looked terrible, like it was crying. I heard the trainer ask his Charizard, who he called Ruby, if she was hungry. She shook her head, but even I could hear her stomach rumble. He insisted that she tell him when she's hungry, since he wanted to help, but she continued to shake her head, telling him that she wasn't, as he pet her with his one remaining arm. Ruby hugged him, her eyes getting watery. "Ruby, if you don't eat, you'll starve." Ruby then began to cry hard, but her trainer reassured her that it's okay and that she had to eat. The man extended his arm towards Ruby, who stared at him, trying to hold back tears, and she reluctantly opened her mouth while the trainer slid his arm between her fangs. "Go on," he said, and she did. The man went to sleep. Then Ruby cried even harder because she knew what would happen the next time she got hungry. Jesus! Okay. If you're as depressed as I am now, hit the like button. It really helps us out. It helps boost us in the algorithm, and it also lets us know that you want more terrifying Pokemon creepypastas that just make me want to hug my dog. And at 9, Demise. It only happened once, the evisceration of the Kalos region. It happened oh so long ago that I don't even think the elders remember, but I do. I'm not like most elders. I am AZ, and I remember when the legendary Pokemon Yveltal finished off its first life cycle. It's unknown when it was born or created, but when it was finished with this mortal plane, it doesn't go quietly. The destruction was vast, and the casualties greater than even the Pokemon War that occurred afterwards. Kalos, the region which this Pokemon called home, was destroyed, leveled by what can only be described as a catastrophic event. The death of this Pokemon sucked the life of the region, as if the region sacrificed itself in order to preserve the Pokemon. Yveltal was saved and created a cocoon of sorts that acted as a shield for the upcoming few thousand years, until one group, known as Team Flare, decided that disturbing the Pokemon that caused the end of the region was a good idea. Of course, they didn't know about the evisceration, they only thought those were stories, but alas, I wait for the destruction of the region once more. And at 8, Charizard! I'm not kidding, that's actually how it's spelled. I know you're looking at me weird. Please don't, okay? I'm not meant to look like this. I used to be so happy. My friend loved me so much, but he would always hang out with his Charizard instead of me, since it was his starter after all. But it eventually ended up dying in a gym battle. He cried all day, and he thought another one would fix it, so he went to get another, but he was already carrying 6 of us. I told him that he could put me away for a little while. All I wanted to do was see him happy. So he did, but it was a very long time. While in the PC, I could feel myself warping. It sounds strange, I know, but all I could feel was my skeleton being pushed and pulled in every direction. At first it seemed like there was no point to this, but over time the others in the PC did the same. They each started warping into something twisted. Something we all wanted to be for our friend, our trainer. Eventually we all warped into variations of the Pokemon our trainer had lost. We were all deformed Charizards combined with our original forms. I used to be a Bulbasaur, now I am a Charizard. Kinda. And at 7, Pokemon Deadly Y. It was the last day of school, and I was screwing around, but then I noticed a Pokemon Y game still in its case laying on the ground. I picked it up, and on the manual it said, "My gift to you," from Noob. Whoever this Noob was had left the cartridge, so I decided to see what kind of terrible team he had. The title screen looked horrible. It said press start to die, and at the bottom of the screen it had the number 666 along with 2 candles sitting between the numbers. When I clicked start, the game flashed an image of dead people. I had to play this. I had to see what was going on. His save file was missing, so I made a new one. But Oak was there instead of Sycamore, and his face was distorted, and he looked like he was going to die. Then he showed me Yveltal puking blood with bloodshot eyes and a bloody nose. Then he collapsed from his injuries. And at 6, good night. I used to have trouble sleeping. I tried everything I could. Sleeping pills, NyQuil, more pills. I even tried Pokemon, but even Jigglypuff couldn't put me to sleep. But then I found her, Meloetta. Meloetta is like my soulmate. We work together in harmony. She helps put me to sleep, and I help her out with her mission. Everyone is sound asleep now. They were all having such a hard time. With the sun out, it's nearly impossible to sleep, but now they can all sleep for as long as they want. Meloetta helps me sleep. She sings to me. It's like everything is a dream. Such a perfect life, singing and sleeping. It's essentially the life of my dreams. Get it? Get it? Because this is a dream. Halfway through, and at number 5, the fire. It was late, probably around 2 in the morning. The thunder was cracking, the lightning was flashing blue, and we saw a figure fly overhead. When it flew over the brass tower, that's when it caught. The fire spread quickly. Despite the rain we thought would prevent it, my dear friends were inside, Sparky, Rainer, and Pyro. They loved to play in the tower, jump from post to post, battling and training themselves just for fun. I never thought it was an issue, but when the fire spread down, they were goners. Rainer tried to protect them. Sparky even took a lightning bolt for them, but nothing worked. Even Pyro stood in the flames and tried to absorb them. Nothing. Luckily, Ho-Oh had a spot for them in his plane, and now whenever I see one of the legendary beasts, I smile and shed a tear for the boys I lost oh so long ago. Perhaps, after the plug is pulled, I will be with them once more. And at 4 Mount Silver. Years before you meet Professor Oak, he trained Red and got him to Mount Silver, but once Red gets there, he isn't heard from again. Oak travels there to see that Red has actually died, but his spirit is still there. All it says is help me. Oak had to find another trainer worthy enough to make it to Mount Silver in order to free Red. The Elite Four is positioned in the perfect place to assure that they are your final test before making the climb. And when you finally make it, Red is surprised to see you, but without speaking, he engages you in a climactic battle that wages for an hour. When you finally defeated him, he says nothing, but smiles and leaves as he can finally pass on. Not being able to say, but showing with his smile, thank you. Getting close to the end into number 3, Flash Caves. We all know that you don't need Flash to get through dark caves, but it certainly does help. However, if you decide to take the dark route, there's actually a trick that works with every Pokemon game. If you walk around for a while, you will eventually find a ladder that isn't actually on the map. It will play the sound of walking downstairs 4 times, and then ask where you think you are. Then you are transported somewhere. You'll know when you can see, and everything is in black and white. Eventually, you will find yourself in a hole in the wall. Go through it and you will be free, but you won't be able to talk to NPCs anymore. In Pokemon Yellow, your Pikachu follower will become a ghost from the Pokemon Tower, and everything will still be in black and white. The only place where you can interact with trainers and Pokemon now is the cave where you use the glitch. However, every trainer you interact with says, do you know where you are? But ultimately, in number 2, Dream of Darkness. It started as sleep paralysis. It's a fairly common phenomenon, at least for me, where your mind wakes up but your body doesn't. Some people say that their blind spots look like people, hence the term sleep paralysis demon, but mine didn't. Mine looked odd. It had legs, but they were long and pointed. The arms were similar in a way, with wide hands thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. It had what looked like smoke coming off of its shoulders, and its hair was similar. It stood there staring at me, but then it started moving. It reached out a hand and I watched it grab my face as if it was trying to wake me up, but instead I fell back asleep. It faded to black, and in my room the demon was gone and I can finally move. It's still dark out, but my clock says 11 a.m. Concerned, I walk down the stairs and I'm calling out to my parents asking them what's going on. They say nothing, so instead I call out to my sister. Nothing again. When I go down, I see why they weren't responding. They were what can only be described as spread out across the room. The ceiling and the walls were red, and their heads were removed. I close my eyes and I'm back in my room. It's still dark out, but my clock says 11 a.m. Concerned, I walk down the stairs and I'm calling out to my parents asking them what's going on. They say nothing, so instead I call out to my sister. Nothing again. And finally, in at number 1, Save Me. After being interested with Lavender Town Syndrome, I got a copy of the original game off of eBay just to see if it was real. When I got to Lavender Town though, there were no NPCs. Just one boy in the Pokemon Tower who was running in circles. He was on every level. Whenever I interacted with him, he would just say save me. Now, I didn't mention this before, but my rival's name was Tyler, because it was actually suggested, not because I chose it. But that's weird, because this game is Japanese. I get to the top floor of the tower and the room shaped like a T. And then, remembering my rival, I ask out loud if this is Tyler. The child turns around and says yes, save me, then starts a Pokemon battle. But he never threw out a Pokemon. He just stood there waiting. I ended up fainting him, and he said thank you. I fell asleep after what felt like hours, but when I wake up, I'm in a car seat in the back of a car holding a different Game Boy. I get out of the car frantically, leaving the Game Boy there, and I get some change off the ground and use a payphone to call my girlfriend. She cusses me out, saying that I should have just told her I was leaving, but at least she sold that damn Pokemon game I bought for too much money last year. I had been dragged into the game, and now another kid had just taken my place. That's all the time we have for today, friends. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been Charlemagne Monroe, and I'll see you in another video.